Horn. Right now, national affairs columnist for National Review Online and also author of Who's Counting? How Fraudsters and Bureaucrats Put Your Vote at Risk. He is the one and only John Fund. Morning, John.
Thank you. Pleasure, Larry.
So we've been talking about this rift between Chris Christie and Rand Paul, and you saw Chris Christie speak to the Republican National Conference at their retreat this week. And it seems like Chris Christie is relishing this fight. He's the one who keeps bringing it up. He keeps trying to draw these lines and say we can't go down the road of those dangerous libertarians. He also took a swipe at Bobby Jindal. Is this important? Is it significant, or is it really just party politics and the 2016 primary beginning this early?
Well, remember, it was Governor Christie who gave the keynote speech to the Republican convention last year, and the speech began with I, and there was a lot of I in it, and then he ended with the word I. And Chris Christie is a great governor. He's my governor. I like him, but he does suffer from attention deficit disorder, meaning he needs attention, and he gets it.
And so you think that's what this is really all about? I mean, ultimately, there is a larger question here with regard to the Republican Party and how they're going to deal with the growing libertarian movement within their ranks.
Well, Chris Christie is from the Northeast. It's a different brand of republicanism. It's far more pragmatic. And basically, I took his message to the Republican National Committee yesterday as, we don't need to talk about ideas. We know what our ideas are, so let's just go out and win. Well, it's 2013. The presidential race is 2016. We have a midterm election in between. At some point you do have to talk about ideas. And, for example, do we support President Obama's, massive expansion of drones and NSA surveillance, or do we want to talk about first principles? So I think you can do both. I think part of winning an election is having a conversation with voters and with your own partisans and deciding what you believe in. I think there's time and space to do both.
But you got this battle between Chris Christie and Rand Paul from the libertarian wing of the party. That is sort of representative of the larger debate that's going on in Republican circles about which direction the party should go. What do you think about that ongoing discussion? Chris Christie says, we don't need to sit around and gaze at our navels. And I pointed out this morning, I don't think he's seen his in a while. But that's beside the point. I mean, he's largely saying that we don't need to sit around and talk about things. We just need to get out and get busy.
Well, I think what we saw in 2012 with Mitt Romney was exactly how far a content-free candidate who couldn't talk about Obamacare can get. I mean, part of the problem that Mitt Romney had is because of Romneycare and its philosophical contradictions, and he couldn't really discuss and critique Obamacare. I think that hobbled him. As we now see, Obamacare is one of the things that is most dragging President Obama down in the polls.
John Fund, the Republican Party is supposed to vote today on the other big piece of news really that's coming out of this retreat, which is Ryan Priebus's idea that we are going to control our own debates during the primary process, and we will boycott CNN and NBC if they move forward with their Hillary movies. What do you think of that strategy?
Well, every party has a right to conduct its own affairs in a way that protects its brand and puts it in the best possible light. I don't think a boycott sounds good. It sounds as if you're afraid of something. I think I would put it in a more positive way, which is, from now on, we're not going to have 35 debates. That's too many. If candidates want to have that many, maybe we'll have some, maybe we'll have some incentives for them to actually do RNC-sponsored debates. And by the way, why do we always have to use the same type of moderators and panelists that they used back in the Kennedy-Nixon debates in 1960? Let's mix it up for a while. Let's have some different voices, some different people, and maybe some people in the media, for example, who actually understand what Republican conservative primary voters like to talk about. And, it's not contraception, it's not the death penalty. It's not a whole bunch of issues that are gotcha issues as far as the national media is concerned.
Yeah, John's latest article at National Review Online points out, I had forgotten about this one, that NBC's Brian Williams, during one of the very first debates at the Reagan Library, asked Governor Rick Perry if he has trouble sleeping at night with considering how many people he's executed as governor.
Wow. Yeah,
not the conversation the Republicans need to have in choosing their candidates.
Well, look, 80% of Republicans support the death penalty. So most of those people sleep pretty well at night.
Yeah. I want to ask you, you were the co-author of a book, Who's Counting? How Fraudsters and Bureaucrats Put Your Vote at Risk. A lot of discussion this week about what's going on in North Carolina. They come up with a voter ID law. Says you basically have to show a photo ID, a driver's license, in order to cast your ballot. It looks like the Justice Department is poised to take action. The NAACP is upset about it. Civil liberty folks are upset about it. What do you think about it?
North Carolina is just become the 34th state to have a voter ID law. This push to have photo ID began with Georgia and Indiana. The Supreme Court approved their voter ID laws. And you know what's happened since then? Turnout among everyone, including minority groups, has gone up. It's gone up in years when Barack Obama wasn't on the ballot, was on the ballot. I don't see there any real examples of people stepping forward saying I was prevented from voting. I think we do see examples of continuing voter fraud that exist. It's not imagination. 60 to 80% of Americans support voter ID across all demographic groups. We want to protect the ballot. It's not a big deal. And by the way, I just interviewed Andrew Young, the former UN ambassador for Jimmy Carter, former Atlanta mayor. Now, he has some questions about voter ID, but he also says, look, if there are people out there who don't have a voter ID, a photo ID, let's get them one, because they can't really participate in the mainstream of American life unless you have one.
Then why is Eric Holder all upset about this?
I think Eric Holder is operating from a prism through the past, which is he sees Jim Crow around every corner, and he believes that there's some mean people who are trying to prevent people from voting. And I just think that's largely a myth, and it's largely to gin up certain minority groups and play boogeyman for them.
It's good politics. You saw Hillary Clinton give her first big speech this week to the American Bar Association, and it was all about North Carolina and voter ID. Politico has said that this is the next big war that we're going to have to deal with in America.
And
the fact that Andrew Young, that's huge, though, John Fund. Have you written about Andrew Young's comments yet?
Well, I've written about, he's made them before. He made them years ago. Remember, he was one of the voices in 2005 when the Presidential Commission headed by Jimmy Carter and James Baker voted 19-3 to approve a national voter identification law. So I believe that a lot of this is just rhetoric, because I looked through Hillary Clinton's speech. There were all kinds of warnings about the coming of Jim Crow, but there were no names of people who've actually been prevented from voting.
John Fund, National Review Online. We got to leave it there. Thanks. Always great to have you. Have a great